Good afternoon. Today we are being joined by Alyssa Fordham-Vagt from CRW Architecture and Design Group. Alyssa, thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. My name is Alyssa Fordham-Vagt. I work at CRW Architecture and Design Group located in Rochester, Minnesota. I am a project designer and a principal here at the firm. We do all sorts of kinds of projects from single family residential to multifamily residential, government buildings, school work, etc. So we really run the gamut on different types of projects that we do. Mainly working in the Rochester area. I like to think of ourselves as our community's architect. A lot of architecture firms specialize in a particular kind of architecture. Maybe it's stadiums, maybe it's schools, but we're heavily rooted in Rochester. So we do whatever our community needs us to do.
So Alyssa, you just talked about the fact that you are a principal at CRW. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what that means in an architecture firm?
Sure. It means I help, well, it's not just myself. So I have other principal partners, Jose Rivas and Jason Woodhouse. And there's also, so we're the three principals. Then we have partners as well, which don't have as many shares or stake in the company. So what the principals do is we help run the day-to-day operations, oversee kind of the big picture, the financials, strategic planning, branding, all that kind of thing. We determine, if there's projects we want to go after and actively pursue. We do that as a team. We oversee workloads for the different employees in the company, who's working on what, how many hours. So it's a little bit of choreography because we have 14 employees trying to figure out who's going to work on what at what time and to ensure that we make the deadlines as well. So those principal duties are then on top of the architecture and designing duties as well.
So Alyssa, what made you want to become an architect and what brought you to CRW?
It was a circuitous path. When I started off in college, I wanted to be a doctor. I went pre-med. A year into that schooling, I thought maybe this isn't for me. As a kid, I loved to be creative. I loved Legos and art and creating things out of nothing, redoing furniture, all that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, maybe medicine isn't for me. Maybe I need something that really taps into the creativity that I need to express. So I decided to change my major to architecture, and I went to school at UW Milwaukee and got my degree there. So I think it was really about, I loved math in school and I loved the arts. And I think architecture is a nice combination of the two. There's a technical aspect, but also a really fun, creative aspect to it as well.
Alyssa, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your educational path and what kind of classes you would suggest that students take both in high school and in their college career?
I think as a high schooler, I think some really helpful classes, and I hated speech in school, hated it, but I think it's very important in architecture, and I think it might be overlooked a little bit. But the ability to talk to somebody or a group of people and portray your plans and your vision for their project is probably paramount. So speech along with maybe some ability to sell and like soft sell, or I don't want to say convince because that sounds very strong, but to show the benefits of your design and your decisions made for that project so that others can see that. I think would be really important. In high school, I had a drafting class. I thought that was very beneficial because it showed me or exposed me a little bit to, you know, the thought process that goes into a project. So if people have the availability to do that as maybe an elective, I would recommend that. Also, you know, arts, creativity, creating something, and math, trigonometry can be handy. And even physics, what holds buildings up, what makes them fall down, those kinds of things.
Thank you, Alyssa. That's incredibly helpful to the people watching this because you gave them a very clear path of what they should do. So you talked a little bit about your college experience previously, but what degree is required to do what you do, and what kind of experiences are required to move forward?
Sure. So I think the degree depends on the person's end goals. So it can be individual. If you want to be a licensed architect, which many do, but many in the profession aren't necessarily licensed. I am not licensed, but I still practice design and the architecture process and all that. But to be a licensed architect, and it varies state by state, but in Minnesota, you need a professional degree. And so what that means is it could be a couple of different paths. You can have a 5-year degree from a professional NAAB accredited program, or you could have a 4-year degree and then a 2-year master's degree in architecture for a total of 6 years would be another way. But then even after, so part of the path to licensure is you also have to do an internship, a guided internship that you have to meet certain criteria in each category, say construction management, schematic design, project planning, those types of things. And then once you've completed that internship, you then take your licensure exams, and it's a series of exams. I think right now it's 5 different exams on different days, and you have, I think they're 4 hours each. But you study for them, and then you take one, and then you study for one, and you take one. And after that, you can apply for licensure in Minnesota. So in Wisconsin, where I got my degree, UW-Milwaukee, they have a 4-year degree, and then they have a 2-year master's. I did the 4-year, and in Wisconsin, you can become licensed in that state with a 4-year degree. I haven't quite, I guess, found the time to do that yet. It's on my to-do list. It's one of my goals. But I can't sign documents as of today in Minnesota. But I think there's still plenty of avenues for people who do like architecture to do something other than being a licensed architect. I think one of the things that really I'm passionate about in architecture is sustainability. And so somebody wouldn't necessarily need a license to do energy modeling, which might help you figure out how a building is placed on a site for maximum energy efficiency. Maybe helps with window placement and insulation values for walls and that sort of thing. That you, just as one example of something you could do without a license within the field. But a lot of people do go on to get licensed.
So Alyssa, what is the biggest difference between what you can do if you're licensed and what you can do if you're not?
The biggest difference is that if you are not licensed, you cannot sign drawings. So that means somebody else will need to sign your drawings for permit, and somebody else will need to assume the responsibility and liability for those. So if you wanted to be a sole practitioner, where you're the owner and you're the only one practicing, you would definitely need your license. However, if you work in a firm like CRW or even a bigger firm, they usually have a couple architects, or maybe it's one lead architect that can sign the drawings. So somebody else might be doing the drafting, the designing, the code analysis, all that, and then the licensed architect would sign off on those drawings.
So Alyssa, what kind of technical skills are needed to do what you do?
I think just like almost any occupation right now, computer skills, um, which skills and which softwares is going to depend on, I think, for one, the firm that you go to, and for two, maybe where your passions and talents lie. There's software for 3D modeling, whether it's design modeling or whether it's energy modeling. AutoCAD and Revit are typically used as drafting softwares, and I think those are becoming, I think Revit is becoming the predominant software to use. So I think being able to pick up software or having exposure to it, I don't think you necessarily need to be proficient, but being willing and able to learn those softwares I think would be important. Probably being able to make like a PowerPoint presentation, those types of things. I think it's really important too to be able to read a set of documents, like plan documents, a two-dimensional plan or a two-dimensional elevation, and even better yet, being able to visualize those plans and elevations in 3D so that you can speak to those and be spatially aware of what you're creating, I suppose. I think it's pretty specific to, it might be pretty specific to kind of what your goals are in the end. Word document or Word docs and all that are always, kind of, I think something any job or any occupation kind of needs to.
So Alyssa, you did a great job talking about the technical skills that are necessary. And before, you talked a little bit about the soft skills that are needed to do the work that you do. Can you talk a little bit more about those soft skills that you would suggest that someone needs to do the kind of work that you specifically do?
Absolutely. I think those are almost more important. And maybe it's because the role I'm in now is as partner principal, but I think those are almost more important than the technical. I feel like the technical can always be learned, but the soft skills are, the ability and willingness to collaborate on a project. You're not, unless you're a sole architect, I think, or sole practitioner, I think you're always going to be working with a team, whether it's other architects or designers or consultants, mechanical, electrical, civil, structural. The ability to collaborate, give ideas, receive constructive feedback, I think is important. Critical thinking is very important, being able to problem solve. I think then there's the time management side of it, being able to meet deadlines and maybe manage your own time so that you're able to meet those deadlines and not be relying on somebody to push you. So self-motivation. Yeah, I really think the collaboration is probably utmost important. Again, being able to convey your ideas effectively to others and to speak to people. I talked about taking a speech class to be able to speak to people, and I don't just mean talk to them or talk at them, to speak to them and be genuine and have a genuine understanding or desire to help them meet their goals for their projects, I think is very important.
So Alyssa, you just talked a little bit about the importance of the selling nature of what you do, and you referenced soft sell and hard sell. Can you talk about those? Because I think a lot of the people that are watching this maybe aren't as familiar with those terms. So Alyssa, one of the things you talked about before was the importance of the selling nature of what you do. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between hard sell and soft sell? Because I think a lot of the people that are watching this aren't going to be overly familiar with those terms.
Sure. So I think that kind of feeds into like business development, which is something we also do. But you know, when you are out doing business development, you're speaking to people and creating relationships. You're not out there knocking on doors saying, "Hey, do you want an architecture project or do you need an architect?" It's really more about cultivating relationships. And in order to cultivate those relationships, I think you need to be genuine in your approach. Kind of speaking back to you know, being authentic with your community and your network. I think those are the soft sell skills that I was referring to, like just good communication, cultivating relationships, especially being a community architect, I think are very important. We probably get the majority of our work through word of mouth or the boards and committees that we're a part of. And, you know, helping out, you know, we might not get paid for every job, but we feel the need to help our community, and we find that it typically comes back to us eventually. So not hitting the road, like trying to offer architecture services to just anyone and everyone. It's about, you know, relationships.
So Alyssa, you've talked a lot about the different community groups and things like that that you're involved in. Can you talk about what your typical workday looks like and how that workday extends beyond traditional business hours as well?
There is no typical workday. Every day looks different. But there are common things that we do, typical things that we do just on, you know, a project basis. Spend a lot of time in meetings, whether it's meeting potential clients and hearing about their project, and seeing if we're a good fit for them, or if it's existing clients and talking through the process and the progress that we've made. Meetings with city officials at, you know, planning and zoning, building safety, public works. Meetings with consultants if we're in the middle of a project and we're collaborating and coordinating, you know, the engineers, and or, you know, if we're under construction, we do a lot of contractor owner meetings. Those might be out on site where we see and we walk through the project. You know, it might be, you know, in the framing stages and we look over everything, make sure that it's complying to the drawings and meeting codes. We do spend a lot of time in the design kind of phase of projects as well, working on floor plans, site plans, elevations, which is my favorite part. When projects are under construction, we do answer a lot of calls, so a lot of problem solving, like the day of, kind of quick on the feet kind of questions. The contractor might be in the field and he's running into an issue and we need to solve it on the fly. Or the client might call and say, hey, we need to revise this. I've got another tenant that needs to go in a space and they need 500 more square feet. Can we relay out the floor plan for this shopping center or something like that? I'd say probably 50% of the project is working in collaboration or coordination with other entities or other people, I should say, whether it's within our firm or, you know, consultants or contractors outside the firm. So a lot of communication and a lot of collaboration and coordination going on.
Thank you very much for that insightful answer, Alyssa. If people wanted to get in touch with you to ask questions or really anything about the work that you do, how would they go about doing so?
I would be more than happy to answer any questions anyone would have. They can get in touch with me at CRW Architecture, and my email address is Fordham, so A as in Apple, Fordham at crwarchitecture.com, or they can call me at work at 507-206-6201.
Thank you, Alyssa. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and I know the students that are watching this appreciate you taking the time as well. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mike. You too.